is. Here she is. It's Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Hello, Sarah.
Meet Maureen. Maureen is my #1 solicitor. So lovely. She can give you legal advice.
Hi, Sarah. Oh, he bills me up so much. I don't know why I can't pay him. I can't afford to pay you, Gary.
Now, Sarah is somebody who can help you when you're just starting out, and she can get you some funds. Someone very, very important at the beginning to help you with your cash flow. So we're look, my pen's at the ready, and I'm looking forward to hearing your talk. Maureen, on behalf of Cleartone, and I'm sure Nick's going to thank you himself, but that was it went by so quickly, so informative.
Thank you.
Really insightful. Most appreciated. And listen, as you said, 20 minutes of a solicitor, a lawyer's time is a lot of money. So, time. So, really appreciate it. It's a very generous offer, and hopefully people take it up and not too much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, Gary.
Really appreciate that.
Have a lovely day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Sarah doesn't need luck. She's going to be great. Sarah, now, you have there's two different ways of doing this. You can share your screen with your slides if you have any. Nick and I can interview you, or we can give you the stage.
So what I would like to do, because I can't multitask, I know this is something that women are supposed to do, but I don't do it. I would like to share a Google Drive link to my presentation so that people can look through it in their own time. And then I will take the stage and allow some time at the end for people to ask me questions, if that's okay.
That sounds perfect. So we're going to unswitch. We're going to take off our cameras. We're going to give you the stage. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Attendees, you're very lucky that we've managed to secure Sarah. She's really gonna help you out. So I'll see you in around 20 minutes. Perfect.
Cheers.
Right, guys. So just bear with me 1 second whilst I find the link to my presentation so that you have that. Right. So that's going in the chat for anyone that wants to follow along. Okay, so hello everyone, I am Sara Sabin, and I'm a transformational coach and consultant for entrepreneurs, high growth startups and small businesses. And as you can imagine, one of the questions that comes up regularly for early stage entrepreneurs and startups is the question of investment. And I get questions like, should I get investment? When should I get it? And is it the right time for me? And if I do get it, how do I get there as quickly and painlessly as possible? So I've been down that road myself. I founded 2 startups in my time. One of them was a tech startup that I raised equity investment for, and the other startup that I had, I used alternative sources of funding to get started. And many of my current clients are also fundraising for their businesses as well. So today's session is specifically about equity investment. And small confession here, hands up, when I was doing it for myself, I made a lot of mistakes. So I'm well aware of the pitfalls to avoid and how to get you to where you need to go faster so that fundraising does not become your life's work and distract you from everything else. So in today's session, I'm going to cover off reasons why you might raise investment, proof of concept, key investment documentation, who is your target investor audience at an early stage, and selling to investors. I'm going to leave hopefully about 5 to 10 minutes at the end for questions that you may have. So first of all, some reasons why you might want to raise funding. So maybe you want to outsource some of your work because you're getting burned out trying to do everything yourself. Maybe you need to build a product or a technology and you don't have the expertise to do it yourself. Or you just want to finally pay yourself a salary because you're the person always paid last. Or perhaps you're pre-revenue or low revenue with proof of concept and you need a cash injection to continue. Now, I want you to ask yourself, first, before you even go down this road, do you really need equity investment, or is there another way? So there are alternative sources of funding you can draw upon, so grants, government loans, bank loans, etc. So ask yourself first if you want to go down that road instead. And if you decide that you do want equity investment, you need to do an estimate of how much you need to reach the next stage in your business. So remember, at an early stage, you will have to give away a greater percentage of equity because the risk is greater for the investor to invest. However, you don't want to run out of money in kind of 1 or 2 months either. So don't go too low with what you're asking for. So it's really that delicate balance there. And the other thing that I just want to say is, for example, if you want to raise £100,000, it is much simpler to have 10 investors putting in £10,000 each than 100 putting in £1,000. So one of my mantras is, do not make your life harder than it needs to be. Get to the point you need to get to as quickly and painlessly as possible. So a few key reasons why you shouldn't raise equity investment. If you are very, very early stage, i.e. idea stage, where you'd have to give away loads of equity and right off the bat, then that's not a good road for you to go down. And also, if you had no idea that the market actually wants your product at all, go off and find out that information first before going down the equity fundraising route. So I've referred to proof of concept, and I just want to go through what that means and how you might go about proving proof of concept. So as the name suggests, this literally means that you can evidence that the product is viable, the business model is profitable, and that it is wanted by the marketplace. So there is a particular pain or a problem that needs to be solved, and you have the answer, and people like the answer that you're providing. And this proof of concept hopefully means you end up giving away less equity. So just to give you an example, if any of you have ever heard of the chain of steak restaurants called Flatiron, based in London, impossible to get into, I've tried numerous times. But anyway, the founder of Flatiron basically went to ask for investment at a really, really early stage. And the investor said, yes, we'll give you money, but I'm going to take a huge percentage of your business. So he said no, and he went off to try and get that proof of concept himself. So he did sort of these dinner party evenings, he had a food truck, he proved that the market wanted high quality £10 steaks. And then he later went to get investment and had to give away less of his business. So the proof of concept hopefully means that you give away less. Just another point to note, angel investors like something that has potentially global application, so a big potential market. Now, what that means is not that you start off in the first year trying to do everything for everyone and covering the whole world. It just means that when you're talking about the market size, you can talk about something global. So how can you show proof of concept? It might look like, for example, doing market research or surveys, and that would need to be of thousands of people rather than hundreds. So the more people that you can demonstrate want or need your service, product, technology, the better. Or it might look like building a minimum viable product and getting a whole load of users on there to test out your MVP. And again, the greater the number and the more relevant the people that are trying it out, the better. Because obviously, for example, if you're building a technology networking platform for lawyers, you want to get as many lawyers to try it out as possible, and it might not be so relevant if, for example, you've got a load of artists on there to try it out because it's not the target market for. Just to explain what a minimum viable product is, it is a basic product that should be produced quickly and cheaply. So it is not bells and whistles
To make
products
into
right at the beginning. You are
a
literally
Canva.
just building something so you can try it out and
Viable products
show this
need to be
proof of
tried
concept.
out before they go to market.
So you want to also hopefully start evidencing early signs of traction. So that could look like letters of intent from customers, getting some big names interested in what you're offering, a list of users that are committed to using the platform. Anything that you can bring to the fore to demonstrate that you can exponentially increase the number of users over a short amount of time.
Can
is
you
really useful.
exponentially?
So going on to the key documentation that you might need, you might have all heard the
Exponentially.
pitch deck. If you have, when people refer to pitch decks, it's usually
Scale
kind of a
growth.
5 to 10 page presentation which covers key points, and you would usually present it to investors or interested parties. Now, I actually recommend having different versions of the pitch deck. So you might have a one-page teaser presentation pitch deck that you use when you're prospecting potential investors, either cold or warm, and just to tease them and get them interested in having a conversation with you. And I also recommend having a long version as well. So a version with appendices with the more detailed information that you're not going to put in the pitch deck, which investors might look at after their initial interest has been excited and they want more detailed information. You may also have heard of SCIS and EIS relief. So basically, SCIS relief is for an investment amount of up to £150,000. And it's really useful to have advance assurance from HMRC that the relief will be available to investors into your business. So what it actually means for the investor is that it mitigates the risk of making the investment because they get tax breaks. It's especially useful for high income earners because it reduces their taxable income and allows them to therefore save income tax. And then there's also capital gains and capital loss relief as well. So it's a useful thing to apply for from HMRC to make the proposition more attractive. Then you will also need a financial model with balance sheet, profit and loss, cash flow, and this will be your projections over the next 3 to 5 years. You can either attempt to do this yourself. I'm an accountant and even I didn't want to do it myself. So you can outsource it for usually a few £100s if it's going to drive you insane. You need a roadmap of how you're going to build out the product and key milestones, and that will also include tech updates as well if you have a tech startup. And having a team is really important. So investors are quite reticent to invest in one-man bands or one-woman bands. By team, I don't necessarily mean a team of people that you're paying, but that could look like having advisors. So those advisors would cover off the key skills that you need to make a business successful. So for example, CEO, someone in charge of sales, someone in charge of marketing, someone in charge of finance. And if you have a tech startup, obviously having a technology officer is also really useful. So early stage investors are also really looking at the team because they're thinking, can this team of people make this startup a success? And if you have co-founders, then having co-founder agreements in place in the event of disputes is really important. So going on to who you approach for early stage investment. Now, if you're at an early stage, it's not the time to be approaching venture capital firms. You might already like that. I think that's highly logical, but to cover off that in black and white. The people that you are going after at an early stage are, number one, your warm network. So that's your friends and family and your extended network. So that could be acquaintances. It could be people you met at networking events that you got on with. It could be colleagues. It could be ex-colleagues. Anyone that you know in some capacity falls into your warm network. And basically, they are the people that you start with when you are raising investment. And it's interestingly the thing that creates most resistance in entrepreneurs, because they're like, no, I don't want to tell people what I'm doing, etc., etc. But it can be a way of gaining traction really quickly. After you've plundered that network, the next stage is really interested parties. So what I mean by that are people that really understand your pain point. So for example, if you have a networking platform for lawyers, approaching senior lawyers that understand the pain point and buy into the idea and think it's a really good one is a really good way of getting early stage investors. So think about who your market is and think about who the top end of that market is, and then think about how you can contact them to sort of start building relationships and pitching your ideas. Then there's also high net worth individuals and angel investors and groups. So high net worth individuals usually are angel investors anyway. With angel investors, you can either approach them on an individual basis, or there are groups of angel investors as well. I recommend using LinkedIn particularly to start putting your feelers out and building relationships with those types of groups and investors. Then there is early stage VCs. So these are VCs that specifically invest at an early stage. Examples of that include the Startup Funding Club, and another example is an organization called Forward Partners. But I will just say that getting investment through that route is really, really competitive, as you can imagine. And the last thing I just want to cover off is crowdfunding. So crowdfunding used to be a lot easier, in my opinion, 5 to 10 years ago. And there were lots of stories at that point where people were like, I raised £600,000 in a minute. Well, not a minute, but very quickly. It's a lot harder nowadays to successfully crowdfund, and it takes a lot of intensive work and effort. So there's a 1 to 2 month build up even before you start crowdfunding. And actually, in an ideal world, if you followed the kind of people that you should be reaching out to before, you maybe don't even need to go down the crowdfunding route. Or alternatively, if you do choose to go down that route, you've already got a market of people that you've already contacted that you can point towards crowdfunding platform if you're choosing to go that way. So I just want to also cover off a few things that you should be aware of. So some sharks. Unfortunately, they do exist. So these might look like people offering to find you investors for a cut. Many of them are, in my experience, quite unethical, but even for those that are actually okay and genuinely want to help out, you can't rely on them. So don't think if you've spoken to 2 of these people and they're like, yeah, sure, then that's it. You put your feet up and, sit back. If it works, but don't rely on it. Also be wary of the type of networking event that you go to. So there are a lot of networking events for entrepreneurs and startups looking to raise money, but what you don't want to go to is an event where there are 95% entrepreneurs and 5% investors, and even the 5% of investors are not really the kind of investor that you want anyway. Because as you can imagine, that's not really the best breeding ground to find investment, and you might end up a bit frustrated. And also be aware of people seeming to offer you the world for nothing. So I had some extremely weird people in my time message me, including some strange random person from, I believe it was the Middle East, saying, I want to give you £10 million. All you have to do is come on a trip to Dubai or wherever it was. If it sounds too good to be true, if it sounds dodgy, it probably is. So just beware that those kind of people are sadly out there. So the last point I want to cover off is really speaking to the language of investors. So how you sell yourself and what you're offering to investors. So when you actually manage to engage an investor, the idea is not for you to get a meeting with them or a Zoom call or whatever it is, and then literally talk at them for 10 to 15 minutes and just kind of shove the pitch deck down their throat. As you may have heard, I'm sure a lot, because a lot of people are talking about it now, with any kind of selling, when you are selling, you are not focusing on the features and benefits, which is where a lot of startup entrepreneurs kind of tend to go wrong. They assume that everyone is passionate about the features of their technology as they are, and that's really not the case. An investor,
I don't know
like
that
any
one.
person you are selling to, is interested in the potential transformation for them, i.e. what it can do for them and what they will get through working with you and investing with you. So people's reasons for investing may be different, and it is incumbent upon you to find out what those reasons are. So any meeting or presentation should be focused around that. And any outreach you do, whether that's warm or cold, should focus on the potential return for the investor, not features and benefits of whatever product or technology that you're offering. And I've kind of heard before from specifically tech entrepreneurs going into a meeting with an investor that investors' eyes can often glaze over if you sort of don't read the room well enough. So it should be a conversation, and you should be asking questions so you can find out what that particular investor cares most about. So this is a conversation, not necessarily a pitch with you just talking all the time. So you're actually assessing this investor as well to see if this person is a good fit, to understand the investor and show them how you can solve whatever it is that they're looking for. So that might look like they have a huge income and they'd welcome the income tax break, or they might really want to make a difference in the world. So they've been really successful so far and now they're passionate about making an impact and they're looking for a way of doing that. Or perhaps they're looking to retire in the next 10 years and are taking on some key speculative investments. Now, the more you find out about them and their motivations, the more you can speak to what it is that they need and want from making this investment. And you're also assessing whether they are the kind of investor that you want. So one of my favorite phrases is, be very careful who you get into bed with. In life,
be very careful who you get into bed with.
I've had an investor in the past that I'm very open, drove me insane, and you know, I sometimes wish that I'd be more cautious before going down that road with him. I've also talked to entrepreneurs in the past that took on a lot of investment too quickly and were actually end up being pushed out of their own company by the investor board. So be aware that getting the right type of investor is important, not just taking any investment for the sake of them. So that actually leads me to seeking investment from the right mindset. So you have a valuable offering that you are looking for the right investors for. So you don't need to come at it from the standpoint or the mindset of neediness. One of my favorite quotes is, needy is creepy. And that's especially true of selling. So you are genuinely looking for an investor to add value to your business. And ideally, that's not just financially. It might be that they're bringing other things to the table. And that could be industry knowledge, experience, mentorship, connections, whatever it is. And that's it. I'm now opening the floor to questions. Gary and Nick, if you want to come back in as well. Does anyone have any questions?
You didn't disappoint.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
You did the whole gambit of really the whole thing. And what I want people to not worry about too much. Sarah tried her best not to use too many corporate sayings, but you are going to be entering a word of business talk. Sarah, brilliant. My favorite was media is creepy, and that's especially true of selling. I love that.
Yeah, I just think like you can feel neediness in any aspect of life, in a relationship as well. There's nothing more off-putting. So
Sarah talked about a deck. Now this is a media term. All it means is that it's some information that you're going to give your client, possibly. So you could be a plumber and you go for a quote, and that could be a deck if you like. It's just beautifully. I always see decks as beautifully put together, and there's no reason why your plumbing quote for that next boiler can't be something of beauty. Don't you think, Sarah? Or you?
Well, I mean, pitch deck is just kind of investment speak for a presentation, which looks nice. That's essentially it. I mean, we all probably do pitch decks all the time in non-investment context.
Brilliant. Nick, what an awesome speaker you chose here.
No, absolutely. Listen, I've known Sarah for a long time, and she's very inspirational, and I love her story about how she started off as an accountant, as I mentioned earlier, and thought I could do better. And look, she's been involved in a lot of startups and been very successful. So no, and listen, the information that, as you said, start off small, find your warm contacts, warm friends, and sort of build out from that. I think is invaluable advice for everybody. And don't give away too much of your company. Well, get that
and you gave some warnings as well, like to be careful. I didn't even think there existed companies out there that help you find funds that could stop you all getting your fingers burnt. So that was great advice there.
Does anyone else listening, do you have any questions?
Let's find out. Let's look at the Q&A.
Oh, is there Q&A?
Okay, so just that. We'll have a look at the chat. It doesn't seem to be below. Here's your opportunity to get somebody who really knows what they're talking about. Sara, so all the speakers said that they would help the startups with some kind of offer at the end. Do you mind telling us what your offer is?
Yeah,
Thank you.
My offer is basically for anyone that was interested in what I've said today, anyone that is early stage and has been thinking about maybe raising some seed funding capital, I am happy to offer a discovery call where we can discuss if it is really something that might be good for them, and some steps that they might be.
Do you want them to have some kind of business plan in front of them? Do you want them to prep, do some homework? Because that's precious time with you if they can get prepared before they come on.
So basically, the way it would work is anyway that I would have a calendar link that I would send, which would have a question on, where are you at the moment? You just fill in that information. I look at it before we speak, and then we have a conversation. But essentially, all I really need to know is, where are you at in your business? Are you at idea stage? Are you looking to get proof of concept? Where are you? I don't need to see a whole business plan. I just kind of need an overview of where someone's at.
So something we've asked all the speakers to come on today is to be authentic and vulnerable with their answer. We don't just want a textbook one. What have you learned from COVID and the last year, good and bad, that you could share with people?
Gosh, I've learned the same amount in the last year. I've learned to stop sweeping things under the carpet, just quite openly. I think we may have all suffered with low periods and perhaps some kind of mild mental health problem, whether that be anxiety, mild depression, or whatever. So one of the things that I've learned is to face all of that internal turmoil that's going on head on, so that you can move forward from it. And one of the other interesting things that I learned is that obviously we can't deny there's a lot of bad stuff going on in the world, but there is a hell of a lot of opportunity out there as well. We just need to open our eyes to the possibility of seeing it. And sometimes that involves shutting out the negative noise and voices. And
you said something. You've really hit on something very, very important. That when you're starting your business, there'll be people that don't have any faith in you or the plan, and there are many multi-millionaires that have had that against them. Nick, I don't know if anyone around you said, "No, I would never do it." He hasn't got it.
Absolutely. It happens a lot, and it can be very deflating, and it can knock you back. But I think it's important, if you've got the right frame of mind and you've got the belief, and you utilise the skills that are out there to help you achieve what you want to achieve. Don't listen. I mean, obviously it's important to take advice, but if you're focused and you believe, and you might be asking a friend, but actually go out to the market and do exactly what Sarah mentioned, is get your proof of concept. Once you've got the proof of concept, just because it's not right for someone that you've mentioned it to do, it doesn't mean it's not right for the market in general. And there's something else Sarah said which was interesting, which is once you've got that proof of concept, you can go beyond sort of international borders. There's no reason why a product that works here in the UK can't work anywhere else as well. So from that point of view, I think, think big, be focused, but yeah, do that, get that proof of concept, really, really important.
Well, I was reading that Britain are going to be buying their bananas from what African nation was it? Ghana, possibly. The world has opened up now. The government, if you've got some, I met the export minister many years ago, and I said to him that between you and I, what's our biggest export? I was expecting him to say cars, or I don't know what he was going to say, or steel. I didn't know. He said the biggest export from the UK is knowledge, and that really inspired me. Like if you can make a course and sell it in Australia, the boundaries are there. So there's no boundaries, and thank